And I think that's the big challenge with our band being like a Christian band. Like we want to try and tackle subjects and topics that you won't get in conventional Christian music. So I feel like we have an opportunity and a responsibility to try and take that on with our songwriting. So our moniker kind of touches it on the head, like aggressive worship, aggressive music, also aggressive messages, but it's worship.
Welcome to the Spencer Whiteout podcast. Rated R.
You have some criminal charges with you, bro. Guess like we're avoiding the shark. Call it leather fetish, dude.
No, today turbo neck day.
I'll give you a kiss. You give me your number.
That checked out a ton, dude. Tell me you felt.
We're Americans. We're the ones that are descendants from the 1776 musket-bearing motherfuckers.
Welcome to the Spencer Whiteout podcast, where we collect experiences as badges, memories as treasures, and stories as wealth. In this episode, I interview Michael Felker, the vocalist of the Christian metalcore band Convictions. We talk all about his foundation of faith, lyric inspiration, skateboarding, and the new album, The Fear of God. Let's dive in. Dude, so stoked that you're joining me today. So from a fellow skateboarder, I've got to ask, what is the best trick you've ever done or the one you're most proud of?
Ooh. I crooked a handrail. It was super big. I think I was like 20 when I did it. That was probably like one of the scariest, biggest thing I've done. I want to say it was like close to like a 10 stair. Yeah, the big rails scare me a little bit.
Do you have footage of this crook?
Yeah, I'd have to do some digging, but I could tag it.
Yeah, tag me, dude. That's funny. Without footage, it's fiction, right? That's what they say. And then what about your favorite skateboarder?
Ooh, probably be Chris Cole, but Billy Marks is probably a close second.
And then what about your favorite skateboarding video?
Ooh, man, there's a lot. Flip Sorry, super good, especially like with the animated clip with Ardo Sorry. Like that like sticks out to me. I like Almost Round 3. I used to watch that a lot. Man, there's so many good ones. I don't know. It's tough being put on the spot. What do you have? What do you like?
I really liked the Girl in Chocolate, Lakai videos. Those are the ones that made the biggest impact on me. Anything that Ty Evans did. So he started with doing Chomp on this, and then Yeah Right, Fully Flared, Pretty Sweet. Yeah, those were probably my favorite skate videos. And then obviously there's tons of other ones, but those are the ones that really stuck out to me.
Yeah. Have you seen Medic Mate?
Is that the one with Costin?
Yeah, it's an S video.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. Sight Unseen. That was a classic. Man, there's so many. You can definitely tell how old I am by some of these name drops.
I love it, dude. Let's keep talking about skateboarding. Did you have a favorite skateboarding video game?
Ooh. I mean, you got to stick with Tony Hawk, but I really love Skate. I think most skaters do, just for the way that the controls are. It feels like as close as you can get to the real thing. A notable mention, X Games Skateboarding on PS2 had like one of the coolest soundtracks, and I loved like how it looked and felt. Definitely got me into like early Linkin Park. So I don't know if anybody really talks about that game much anymore, but that was a fun one.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one. I'll have to look into that one.
It's a little janky, but it was fun.
I bet. I liked American Wasteland of Tony Hawk. Did you ever play that one?
Yeah, I didn't like that one.
Really?
It was like Tony Hawk Underground. Like that was like the big moment for me. Like that was like my peak of like skating. Like I had sponsors and it just felt like I was like the main character in that game when I was a kid. So I kind of fell off. Like I didn't really play too much after American Wasteland. I think that was kind of when I was just like, all right, I'm going to play skate, do my own thing. But that was like when like Bam Margera like took over the whole franchise for a minute too.
Right. Yeah. I also love Skate though. Skate 1 and 2 are probably my all-time favorites.
Nice. Yeah. They're so good.
And then talk to me about your hobbies outside of music.
This is like everyday thing now. Like I just like focus on pushing the band. And I also, I'm a screaming vocal instructor now too. So I spend a lot of time with my students on that. But outside of that, I like hiking. I've recently gotten into fishing, like kind of starting to like lean more into like the outdoorsy kind of stuff. skating. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Michael, what's it like being buff?
Just eat a lot of food and people will think you're buff. That's my trick.
I love it. Dude, so I watched the very first video that Convictions uploaded on their YouTube channel way back when, over 10 years ago. And even back then, it was described as aggressive worship. And I just thought that was such a perfect tagline for the band. And it's cool to see that stuck around even through all the lineup changes.
Yeah, it's definitely been a moniker representation of what we have and who we are and everything. So I think that's always going to be there.
And then talk to me about the conversation you had with your dad right before joining the band. I thought that was really interesting and deep.
Okay, so this is like maybe 2010. So this is quite a while ago. Yeah, I was new to Christianity. My dad had been going to church for quite a bit of time, and I was like pretty much hardcore atheist. And then I had my moment with God. I found God and I became a Christian. And it was around that time when Convictions approached me. And I had been doing music for years before that. But I remember like telling my dad, like, hey, I'm going to join a Christian band, and thinking he'd be really supportive. But I was kind of like taken off guard when he was like, I don't think you should do that. Like, unless you're like fully invested and willing to like go all the way with it. Like, you can't just like be lukewarm about something like that. So that was actually what inspired me to call our first record I Will Become, because it was like that coming to God moment and like the walk that you would take to get to that. So yeah, my dad's always been like super influential with me and my music and my like alternative culture, I guess, influences. Like, he's like one of the first people to introduce me like hard rock and skateboarding and BMX and all the things I used to do with him as a kid. So I've always been kind of like counterculture influenced because of him.
Yeah, me too. That's funny. That kind of reminds me of me and my dad, because I mean, he would definitely, turn on the Christian radio. And back then there was much more like Christian rock and alternative music marketed to the youth. And it's kind of funny because it's like I just took that and ran with it and just like kept going. And he's probably like, whoa, like, you're listening to a lot of crazy stuff. But I remember being like, I don't know, probably 7 years old and hearing Rock Fist by 1,000 Foot Crutch and thinking that was the coolest song ever. And it just spiraled me into like more and more rock music, crazier stuff, metal, like all this. And yeah, I'm sure you can relate a little bit.
Oh yeah. No, that's awesome.
Did you listen to a lot of Christian bands growing up or not?
Well, I was listening to like some Christian bands without even knowing it, like Switchfoot. We just played a festival yesterday with them, and I was just like, dang, this is crazy. Like, I used to listen to them on the radio and MTV. And like, I didn't even know they were Christian back then. Or Flyleaf, we've gotten close with them. Yeah, it's always been like adjacent in my life, but I didn't grow up in a Christian household. So like, it was never really like something we talked about or, had interest in. So I guess no.
And then talk to me about joining the band and then some of the lineup changes over the years and basically continuing on despite it all. I feel like this must have really solidified your bond and brotherhood between you and Zach.
Definitely. It's been like a 10-year journey, and it's tough, man. Like, we've been at like a certain level where you can't just drop everything and then pursue this as a career because it's not like financially sustainable. So I think that definitely has a big hand in it. Like, there's a lot of pressure to move on in a certain path in your life, like getting married, settling down, having kids, or pursuing like a full-time career. That definitely takes a heavy hand in people's commitment to do something like this. It takes a lot of sacrifice. And like I said, we've been doing this for 10 years. So like along the way there, like you're going to have people that need to take different routes in life. But what's really cool about our band is like we've been able to keep the relationships we've had with our former bandmates. We still keep in touch and spend time together. John, our former bass player, singer, he does all our music videos, and it's bittersweet for sure. But yeah, like Zach and I, we've just kind of really like hunkered down and stuck with it. And we have this motto, basically like, whenever we're in a troubled situation where we say to each other, keep the train moving. Let's just keep the train moving. And that's kind of stuck with us. It's like, no matter what, Convictions is going to keep going. And if you need to take a stop, that's fine, but the train's going to keep moving. It's just that urgency and drive to keep pushing forward. So yeah, Zach and I, we definitely gotten a lot closer throughout the years, just kind of putting our heads together to, protect the band and keep it moving.
I love that. And then talk about everything being DIY and not working with a label.
Yeah, I mean, like, what would you like to know with that?
What are the biggest benefits and the worst challenges?
Well, I would say like the biggest advantage is just having like that creative freedom. Like, tomorrow I could put out a song because I feel like it, and there wouldn't be like a lot of pushback, like you'd get from a label, like creatively. And then, yeah, probably the biggest like obstacle is like opportunities and like finances. Because we're DIY, like we do everything in-house, like up until late. We actually have like a really cool team with us now. We've been able to be self-sustainable, which is like super important for what we're doing. Our fans have been really supportive and dedicated to us throughout the years. So we've been able to finance our own albums and merch and, you know, everything that comes with being in a band. So at first it was like a little rough. Like we bought out of our last record deal and we're like, okay, like we're on our own now. But it's been like really cool too. There's been a lot of freedom with that. Like we can work with whoever we want. We can create the art that we intentionally want to make. I guess the only like setback, like I said, would be like financial stuff.
Yeah, no big deal. Just financial stuff. And then talk to me about your writing process.
I feel like I really like came into my own with our last record, I Won't Survive. We worked with a really well-known producer. His name's Andrew Wade. Incredible guy, super talented. He's done some of my favorite records. When we went in to work with him, it was such a different experience that I've ever had working with a producer. Usually, like, you'll just go in with demos and pre-written material, and then you kind of put your heads together and then just start recording, like, as soon as that day even. It was so different. We sat in the studio for, like, I want to say, like, 5 days before any instrument was even played. We sat, reviewed all the lyrics. We talked about the meaning and, you know, the right words and perspectives to have. And it was really eye-opening just how much care and attention he influenced me to put into lyric writing. And I had a bit of like a different take on writing. I've been doing like interviews with different people and trying to understand their struggles and the things that they experience and how they find hope or meaning in the difficult circumstances they're in. And that's really been like such a new take on writing, instead of just writing from my own personal experiences from every song, but to like approach it from like a journalism perspective, where it's, you're asking questions, you're diving deeper into, you know, their thought process and their struggles and how they view the world. And it's really been so fun just to like experience that with somebody and like have that opportunity to kind of interview people. And it's helped me learn a lot about myself too, and how I view empathy and seeing the world through other people's eyes, I guess.
Yeah, and it makes it more relatable.
Definitely.
So I'm a filmmaker and I tend to get inspired to write movies by listening to music. And I'm wondering if there's any movies that have inspired you to write music.
That's really cool. We wrote a song called Stigmata. I was influenced by this movie called The Book of Eli. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah. That's an awesome movie.
Yeah. That whole cinematic approach to writing, like songwriting, is so cool. The storytelling and the arcs and the beats that like a movie will have traditionally, you know, you have like your setup, your rising tension, your climax, your downfall, your redemption, the typical story arc. That's definitely kind of influenced the way that I retell people's stories. But yeah, like that was a big one. I don't know. There's so many. I really like the movie Blade Runner, specifically the new one, Blade Runner 2049. That movie, just having that like cyberpunk noir, and it's just like so introspective. Like there's not even a lot of dialogue to it, but like you really like kind of feel for Ryan in that movie and like kind of see the world through his eyes. And I don't know. I always think about that movie. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm into cyberpunk or something. I don't know.
I love that movie, dude. That's in my top 10 of all time. I'm a huge fan of that one.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you get it.
Yeah, definitely. And the soundtrack too for that one with Hans Zimmer is just like incredible. It's beautiful.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite composers. He's incredible.
Okay, and if you could replace any movie soundtrack with Convictions music, which one would you want to do?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to think about that, but I do want to make a comment because you're into movies. Do you follow Ridley Scott, all the movies he's done? And he's like one of my favorites, like Alien, Gladiator, all that. Well, Gladiator was one of my favorite movies. And then they just put out that trailer for Gladiator 2.
With the pop music and
what
stuff.
are they doing, man? Like, it was like, I was like so offended because it was like not, like if you remember the original soundtrack from Gladiator, like you listen to those songs, like you'll start crying. Like it's like so moving. And now it's like so modern and goofy, like,
Yeah, I felt the same way, dude, when I saw that. And it was like this pop rap remix for the trailer. I was like, this is just ruinous.
Yeah, it was making my blood boil. I was like, you can't do this. Stop. I can't think of like a big movie off the top of my head, but there's this movie called Warrior.
I just saw that one, the MMA movie. That was pretty badass.
Yeah, I'll make a soundtrack for that. That would be sick.
I love that. And then talk to me about your best show and your worst show.
Oh, man. You brought the questions. Okay, favorite show? It's a little convoluted. I had some of my favorite shows with August Burns Red when I sang for them. With Convictions, my favorite one that I always think of is when we played in Moscow. This, like, the whole experience leading up to it was, like, so crazy. We didn't know what to expect. we got into the country illegally because we like lied about our visas. So we were ready to like basically get incarcerated as soon as we got like into the country. So that was absolutely terrifying. I feel fine telling this because I don't know if we're ever going to be able to go back with everything going on. But dude, yeah, it was super rough. We came in with sketchy visas. We flew through like a crazy hurricane or something. So the plane ride there, I thought we were going to lose our lives on that plane. That was terrifying. We get in there, super sketchy. Somehow there, everybody's really cool at the airport. They just like waved us through. And then there was like this scary security guard that like caught one of our members smoking a cigarette, and like he took his passport, and like that was like a really big scare. We're all like super tired. We took like a van. See, I don't even remember. I was so tired. We took a van there, and then the promoter was like, okay, like we want you guys to be ready. We're going to do a big VIP. And we're like, nobody's going to be a VIP. Like, we're not that big. We've never been here before. You know, we didn't know what to expect. So we're like sleeping in like the venue and like the booths. We thought maybe, if we're lucky, maybe 100 people. No, dude, it was like 500 people, like sold out show. Like, it doesn't really necessarily matter about the amount of people, but like the reception from the people. You can have like 1,000 statues and it's not that sweet of a show. It's kind of weird. But like, you could have like 100 people that are just going bananas, and that'll be like 10 times better than the 1,000, if you kind of follow what I'm saying here. Mm-hmm. This is like 600, I can't remember how many people, but it was just completely packed, sold out, and everybody there was just going AWOL, like everyone. And it was just such like a crazy experience because we were so tired. We'd never been to this country. We didn't know what to expect. Thought we were going to get arrested or detained. Like, had a sold out show. It was crazy. And then we're packing up the merch, and there's these guys like rifles with their like Adidas tracksuits standing at the door. And we thought, this is it. Like, they're going to take us in now. We didn't. It was great. So like, that's just like a crazy story and like awesome memory. That's one of my favorite shows.
What about the passport? Did you get the passport back?
Oh, yeah. He basically was just like scaring him. He was like, okay, like you can't smoke here. Here's your stuff. Get out of here. But we're all like on high alert, you know, like at this airport. Because we've heard of bands being arrested and basically held in Russia because they're not supposed to be there. So we were like paranoid about that.
Metal band convictions held hostage. What do you think the ransom would be to get you guys free? Would anyone pay it?
They'd be like, whose convictions? Leave them. I don't know. I mean, it'd be cool publicity, but I would not. No, I'm not trying to do that. Not worth it.
Okay, and then worst show.
Well, we've had a show that we had to cut short. We played like 2 songs and like all the gear like exploded. We were in, I think it was Manchester. It was in England, and it was actually like a really cool venue. It was like owned by somebody from Iron Maiden. So there's like all this like Eddie stuff, memorabilia around the venue. And I don't know if it was like something with our power and the conversion of it, but basically the watts were too much or whatever, and it blew all our gear. So we had to like stop after like 2 songs. So that was like a really big bummer. But the people there were really cool, so I don't want to say it's the worst.
Any injuries?
Injuries, yeah. So John, our former bass player I mentioned earlier, he dislocated his knee on stage once, and he had to pop that back into place, and he like finished the set on the ground. Our another former member, Daniel, he fell off of like a stage that was like really high. Then we had to rush him to the hospital after that. But I think he was being a baby because he like took like painkiller and we were back on the road. So I don't know what that was about.
Yeah. And then talk to me about filling in for August Burns Red. That sounds like a really big deal.
It was a really big deal.
How did that come about? Why were you on the short list? Why did they have to find a replacement? What was the story there?
Well, it was a medical emergency. This is during COVID. So a lot of band guys were getting sick. They needed to have like replacements ready. So I don't know like the full like story on like the scouting of it, but I know that I put out a couple covers that I did of theirs, and a couple of the members had followed me. It wasn't shortly after that where I had gotten a message, hey, if something happens, would you be interested? And of course I said yes. And I spent maybe a couple months like trying to learn some of the songs. But when it came time for like that big important call, I didn't know it was coming. It was like 3 a.m. and I was working overnight in a warehouse, and, you know, it was a medical emergency. So it's like, hey, this is what's going on. Can you do this? Can you be at the airport and be in Memphis in 12 hours? So I panicked and dropped everything in my life and flew out, and I didn't have any rehearsal or anything. I was just boom, right on stage. It was crazy.
What about all the lyrics? Because they play a long set. So did you know all of them?
Yeah, it was the Level or 10-year anniversary. So I had to learn that whole record. And then they had, I think, like a half-hour encore set too. A lot of like the legacy songs like Whitewash and things like that. I'm pretty analog, so I just printed off all the lyrics. And then I have like a little like method to learning songs. So like I had to like box out certain areas that I was like kind of unfamiliar with. And I've learned that it takes me 40 listens to learn a song front to back. So every song on the album I listened to at least 40 times, and then the encore songs. But yeah, there was still a few kind of hairy moments where I'm like on the plane, like getting ready to meet the guys, and I'm like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, trying to like learn it all on the spot. Luckily, I didn't have any boo-boos that I remember. So yeah, it was like kind of like my time to show up. I was all in.
That's amazing, dude. And how was it being on stage playing to thousands of people?
Pretty surreal. I think about it a lot, honestly. It's hard to explain. Like, you spend your whole life skateboarding and then you get called in the X Games or something. It's like, you got to show up. You got to do the thing. A lot of it was autopilot. Like, I've spent my whole life basically preparing for that. And it felt pretty numb, to be honest. Like, I didn't really have a whole lot of feelings like playing in front of all the people. It was more like focus and just like hitting my marks. But I definitely like physically remember like my body wanting to shut down. And I was telling myself like a little inner monologue, like, hey, you may never get this chance again. You need to fully commit and embrace it and push past that threshold where you want to kind of shut down or take a break on stage. But I just gave it way more than I thought I could, I guess. Like, I was pushing myself way harder than I had ever before, really. And I knew I would regret it if I didn't. So it was just like, go all the way in.
Yeah. And how long was that tour?
It was a little over a week, so I played 8 shows.
Nice. And then I want to ask about your relationship with some other Christian bands like Holy Name, Bloodlines, Confessions of a Traitor.
Sure. What would you like to know?
Which one's your favorite? No, I don't know.
Definitely not Bloodlines. No, I love those guys. They're all cool. I want to say those are all face down bands too, which is pretty trippy because I grew up listening to like a lot of metalcore and hardcore. And I used to have a Sleeping Giant poster in my room. And flash forward a few years ago, I'm getting a phone call at like 8 a.m. on a Sunday from Tommy from Sleeping Giant, now Holy Name, waking me up. Hey, what are you doing, Mike? Oh, I'm just sleeping. Oh, okay. You want to be on our song? It's just like, what? Like, super surreal. Like, these are people I look up to. I actually got to perform with them in California. They had a big show out there, and that was really trippy just to like be able to share the stage with some of the people I really look up to, like Ryan from Demon Hunter, obviously Tommy, Holy Name, Brooke from Impending Doom. Like, these are all like people I really respect, and it was really like an awesome moment. And then, yeah, there's like new fresh blood, like Bloodlines. We discovered them on one of our headlining tours quite a while ago. They were still like in their early stages. They were just doing local gigs. And, we played a lot of local bands on the road, and something was really special about that band. I remember where like these guys they reminded us of us, really, like the way that they make their music and their message. Well, we saw something really special in them. So it was really cool being able to bring them out on the road with us. They're lovely guys. Confession of a Traitor, super cool. We brought them over here twice. We had like a band group chat. So we talk to those guys like every day. And I'm always asking them stupid British questions. Like, you guys like Harry Potter? Like stuff like that. Like, we just teasing each other. They're so funny.
And then is there any other up and coming like Christian metal bands to pay attention to, or did we cover them? Yeah,
it seems to be like a decent resurgence like going on. I'm friends with this band. They're called Then It Ends. They're great. And I did a feature with this band called Reformers. They're super good, extremely talented, very young band. I think they have a bright future. There's another band that I'm friends with that I did a feature with called Diamonds to Dust. So good. They're like very, very heavy. And there's a band we brought out called Cultist. All those bands are amazing. You should check them out if you haven't.
And then I want to discuss the first track that I heard from you guys, which was The Price of Grace, obviously one of your biggest songs. This one's just super powerful. So I know you've talked about it a lot before, but if you could give the audience just a kind of brief summary of what this song is about and maybe what it did for you guys as convictions. Yeah, this song has been like really important for us. We spent like the last few years sharing our thoughts on mental health and suicide on stage and trying to reach people on that. And it all like kind of stemmed off of this song. Yeah, we had 2 fans of ours that would follow us on tour. They were seeing us all over the country. Their names are Travis and CJ. And throughout all these tour stops they visited us on, we became friends with them. And CJ and I, we kept in touch, and he was telling me about his friend Travis. He's like, yeah, he's not really into metal. He's kind of a quiet guy, but like he seems to really like it. So, it's cool bringing him out to your guys' shows. And, we formed this friendship. And a few years went by. And I was between tours, and CJ had called me and he told me that Travis had unexpectedly taken his life. And I want to say that was my first experience with suicide within like my immediate circle. And it was really challenging to process it. And
not really like understanding like the reasoning behind it, and yeah, just like the thought process behind that. So I had gotten back in touch with CJ. I felt like a tug on my heart to ask him if he'd like to share a story and how he's gone through his stages of grief, and see if he'd like to share that within a song. And he was so honestly like so brave for doing this, because I know how challenging it was for him. And I try to give him every opportunity, like, hey, just walk away from this if this isn't, it's a very sensitive thing. And he was very eager to help and on board with it. And so that was one of the first songs where I was doing these interviews, like I was telling you about, where you can ask the right questions. And if you're comfortable diving deeper and deeper into the struggle and the things that they're experiencing. And yeah, he was so helpful for it. And it's one of my proudest works. I remember sitting in the studio with that producer I was telling you about, and we were talking about this, and I had this looming feeling over my shoulder spiritually, like we would say, like, this is like the enemy. We had written about suicide in the past in some of our older songs, and there's these thoughts of like, oh, is this a cliche? This has been done before. A lot of bands do this. Maybe we shouldn't do this. This could be insensitive or corny or whatever. I remember having those thoughts, but they weren't mine. And once I realized that, I knew that like we need to like go full force with it. And I'm so glad we did, because we've had so many people approach us and share their experiences and stories with how they've handled suicide or how they've had their own suicidal thoughts and tendencies. And it's just been so moving and meaningful to be a part of that and to be a part of someone's life, and hopefully allowing CJ's song to help them in their walk has been very, like I said, meaningful. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of that.
Yeah, man, it's an excellent track. And Swan Song off the new album almost seems like a spiritual successor to that. Would that be fair to say?
It is. Yeah. So like you said, that's following up The Price of Grace. I called CJ years now after that song had come out, and like, hey, where are you at right now? What are your thoughts now? Have they changed? Like, we basically went back into the story and got like an update on his life, and I tried to basically keep that narrative going forward. And it's very eye-opening just hearing how he's still struggling, and he always will, and that's okay. That'll bring you closer to others struggling. Like, it's like the community of it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to get into the new album, The Fear of God. What stood out for me from the get-go was the incredible album artwork, dude. Just showing God holding the world. I love that. Who did the artwork?
That was done by Quiet Strength, which is there's a band called The Protests, and Josh and Jared from that band, they're brothers. They work together on a lot of artists' artwork, and they did an incredible job. This was our first time like really working with them and trusting them, and they really brought it. What I saw in my head is basically what we got. Spot on. Those guys are incredible. Really happy with how that turned out.
What I really appreciate about this album and just your music in general is just how raw and honest it is. You guys are like the first Christian band that I've really related to in a long time, and felt like really moved by. So I just want to, thank you for that. And I also want to just get into some of these tracks and hear your take on them. So let's talk about the first single, Sleeping Lotus.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing that. That song stood out to me, and it's close to my heart. I struggle a lot with anxiety, and a lot of the feelings that we put into that song and feeling stagnant and complacent. And kind of like I was saying earlier, like it's been like over 10 years, and sometimes it feels stagnant in life, like, trying to find your place and live up to certain expectations and ideas. And I work in a warehouse throughout the night, lifting up heavy boxes, and it's dark and damp, and you question, like, what am I doing with my life and where is it going? And Sleeping Lotus is that. It's that place in life where you feel like you were born, you were destined for bigger and better things, and due to your circumstances, you question everything. And so, yeah, that one was very near and dear to me.
I relate to that a lot, dude. Just, you're working a normal job and you're like this artist with big dreams, and you're like, what's going on? I'm meant for so much more than this,
100%. Yeah.
But I think that's the testing grounds, right? And being able to learn responsibility and being able to have the right attitude and being able to steward more when the time comes.
Definitely. Yeah. Very humbling. And I think it's good to experience that, though, like that long haul. I feel like there's artists that we've met throughout these 10 plus years that kind of blew up overnight, and then just as fast as they came, they left. And we've had so many different highs and lows, and it's really kind of strengthened us, even though like we've had like members come and go. Like I feel like the band is stronger than ever, and it's just kind of like goes to show, like, I feel like we've made something really special with Convictions, and it makes me appreciate the wins so much more.
Yeah, and I love these lyrics here. God, water these roots and drown out the doubt. Nourish my purpose. Turn me inside out. Illuminate your design. I'll leave the old me behind.
Yeah, just kind of giving it up, you know, like giving up those doubts, giving up those fears, and like trusting, letting go of the thoughts and things that really drag you down and get in the way of your true potential.
And then talk to me about the Four Horses song. This one's super heavy, beat down, crazy track about Christ returning and his judgment at the end of days.
Yeah, that was fun. I don't usually write like this, but we did intend to have a few songs on the record that are just all in your face. I was doing Butterflies in the gym, and I was just like, everyone will die. And I was like, how would that fit into a song? And then I started thinking about Revelation, and I had taken some Bible study courses on that, and I was just kind of thinking of the imagery and how it matched what I felt listening to the music. Yeah, it took a few days just to kind of stew over on some like ideas and lyrics, and that's where us versus the world came into play, because as Christians, like, we don't view ourselves as of the world, and so like that was an influence. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I felt like it was a good time to take a risk and try something different and be a little bit more bold in our music.
Loved it. And then this track, Hurts Like Hell. This one is my favorite, dude. Goosebumps on my skin, tears in my eyes the first time I heard this song. The lyrics here, did God make a mistake the day he took you away, or did God make you complete by taking a piece of me? Talk to me about this song, dude. This one's super powerful. I love this one.
This is Zach's song, our drummer. He had lost his father, Chris, a few years back here. We had talked about writing this song around the time that we were writing Stigmata and Supernova. So this is 2021, maybe. He wanted to spend more time on this, like feeling it over and making sure the time was right. And I completely respect him for that. It was a long time coming, but Zach spent a good amount of time thinking over these lyrics. And for this one, we just completely trusted him. Like, tell us how you feel and where your heart is and everything. And I think he wrote some really great lyrics there. So I wish Zach was here. I'm just kind of the middleman here.
I mean, everybody that I've shown this track to, I mean, they just respect it. You know, you can't help but just respect it when you hear a song like that.
Yeah.
And the video, too, really helps with that.
Yeah. I'm glad I was a little bit more hands off with this one. I mean, because of this song and how near and dear it is to him, just trusting that it's going to turn out the way it's intended to be. I think he did a really beautiful job, like crafting the lyrics and telling his story.
And then let's talk about Buried in Thorns. This one's obviously a very heavy track with even heavier subject material.
Yeah.
Domestic abuse. And I love those lyrics. You hit a woman with the same hands that you pray to God. That's pretty savage.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a true story. This is my girlfriend. She has a very this is so challenging to talk about. She has, and I'm going to say had because he's no longer in her life, an abusive father. And yeah, being able to sit with her and hear her story and see the way it affects her is very moving. And I wanted her to tell me everything that she felt comfortable sharing. And I'm grateful for how open she was, because it was very eye-opening hearing the experience through a woman's eyes, domestic violence and abuse. So it was very challenging, but I'm grateful for this. And I'm glad that we leaned heavily into the emotional side of it, like just telling it how it is. Like, there's a series of lyrics where we're saying, you wretched, loathsome, pathetic excuse of a soul. Like, yeah, that doesn't sound quite Christian on the surface, but those are real emotions. And it's important to share that because that's real, you know? That
reminds me of when Memphis Mayfire had that song where he said, you're such a sick, sad waste of a human being. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that, but yeah, I can relate to it.
That one was on The Hollow. And I remember being like, whoa, that's really intense. And they had that like on the back of a shirt. And I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I really like their album Challenger. That was like a big one for me.
With the green face.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then these lyrics too. Save this broken soul in Christ alone. Give me the strength to speak my truth with atonement, with justice. Bring forth a season of redemption. Okay, I love every bit of this lyrics except for speak my truth. I got to push back on that a little bit because the truth isn't relative. There's only one truth, and it's the truth. So what do you think of that?
Right. No, this is from the perspective of the victim. So I didn't want to like round out the song with just like, okay, everything's better now. Like, cause that's a cop out and that's not fair. So I didn't want to leave it on just like some blissful, hopeful note. So when I'm saying bring forth the season of redemption, give me the strength to speak my truth, it's asking God to give her the empowerment and the courage to speak her truth when it comes to like opening up to authority and the court and the public. This is her truth, not God's truth. It's her truth through her experience of trauma.
Yeah, I just had to get your take on that, because that's always a pet peeve of mine when people say, oh, well, this is my truth. And I'm just like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, it's just her true experience.
Yeah, no, I got you. Now let's talk about Waking Nightmare. Do you want to get into this one?
Sure. I was privileged enough to share through the experiences of a close friend who had experienced a miscarriage. She provided all kinds of texts that she had shared with herself because she was like journaling with her experience. And I felt like it was an important topic. She felt it was important. She wanted to share it. And I think it doesn't really get talked about too much. And I feel like there's an audience for it.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't get talked about enough. And this was definitely the first time I heard a song about that. So I was impressed, and it's a really vulnerable track. And so I'm glad you guys wrote this one. I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Thank you. I hope so. And yeah, it's been pretty eye-opening. When we went into writing it and releasing it, it was actually extremely eye-opening to have a lot of our female friends like come forward and family members and say they've either gone through this or have been impacted by it. And it's soul-crushing, but I feel like it's important to understand that and to lend an ear and take to heart what they experience. So...
yeah, and it's not something fun to talk about. So most people keep that secretive and don't want to bring that up or discuss that. So bringing it to the light is a good way to heal.
Yeah, and I think that's the big challenge, like with our band being like a Christian band. Like we want to try and tackle subjects and topics that you won't get in conventional Christian music. So I feel like we have an opportunity and a responsibility to try and take that on with our approach to writing.
Yeah, and I love it. That's why I connect with your band so much, dude, because I'm trying to do that with filmmaking and with, redefining what Christian filmmaking really is. Because it's like, I want to make movies that are raw and real and talking about painful stuff. And there's obviously always redemption, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that light is Jesus and God's truth. But, I want people to be able to find themselves in the mess of the story and be able to relate on a real level.
Yeah, and I think that's just it. Like, there's a lot of people that we meet, especially on the road, that they have like a bad taste in their mouth with Christianity because all they see is like the sunshine and daisies and, overly almost delusional positivity that you get from Christian culture. And, they're like, oh, that's great. Like, that's good for you. But like, you don't know the darkness that I have in my life. Like, I can never relate. And with our art, whether it's your filmmaking or music, it's trying to meet that person at eye level, like where they're at, and to share a real experience, not just join us and everything is going to be okay and happy. And, that's just not real.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the Coastal Glow. Dude, this one is a super fun, catchy, melodic track. For some reason, this one just really gives off sunset vibes. Like, I just love listening to this song at sunset. And I'm like, it's just so catchy, dude. It's an earworm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such like a juxtaposition too, because it's like really poppy and fun, and we took a risk with it. To me, there's almost like a nostalgic, like circa They're Only Chasing Safety era, like Under Oath, like vibe to it. But the lyrics are like kind of darker. It's like challenging your masculinity and what it means to you and how to navigate that with like a bubblegum pop chorus and like crushing breakdowns. Like, I didn't expect that when we went into writing this record.
And then talk about involving your dad in the video, and then also getting Sonny from POD to cameo.
Yeah, that was crazy. My dad and I was talking to you about earlier, he's a great dad, but he can be like so hard on me sometimes, or he had been in those low moments of convictions where it's like, all right, like you should get, a real job. You should maybe go back to school, like just being a parent. And that's something I think about a lot. And so when we were like coming up with ideas for this video, we were like, let's just make a fun video. Like, we've never really made like a silly, goofy video. And I wanted to bring in my dad as like a cameo. And then it ended up being like, okay, what if my dad like replaced me in the band, and how would I handle that? Like getting a real job like he wants. It's mirroring like real life experiences in like a funny way. And bringing in like Sonny was like the icing on the cake, because I grew up listening to POD not knowing they're a Christian. That's another band. And my brother and I, like, we used to listen to the Satellite album all the time. And this was before I even played music, but I'm like pretending to like play guitar with like a broomstick in the basement while we're listening to that record. So it was like such like a crazy thing being able to make that happen. And I love like South Park humor and like being like super goofy. So like using all like the lyrics I could think of from that record, Satellite, in my conversation with Sonny was just like really funny to me. So I had to do that. But yeah, it's super cool of him to do that. And I know that he wasn't super familiar with us like going into this. And so he kind of took a chance. So I really respect him for that. And yeah, hopefully we can play some shows with them soon.
What would you say the message of the band is, or maybe one thing people could take away from listening to your music?
That's a good one. I was kind of touching down on it a little bit ago, talking about using our music and our platform to try and meet people at eye level with our message of faith. We want to be like as inclusive and welcoming as possible, like just like I believe Jesus would. So that's like a big reason why we like go off and play in bars, and we played in strip clubs even. Like we'll go anywhere, like wherever we're called. Yeah, it's just meeting people where they're at in life and trying to share a hopeful message of our faith and talking about uncomfortable topics that are real and can hopefully like bridge that gap between like the secular world and our spiritual world with our songwriting. So our moniker kind of touches it on the head, like aggressive worship, aggressive music, also aggressive messages, but it's worship.
I love that, man. And so what are some upcoming plans you guys have?
What's next? Well, we're getting ready to hit the road here. Next year, we're hopefully going to have some more material to release. And we have some tour submissions that we're waiting on. So we'll be back out there on the road.
Right on, dude. Well, I'd love to see you guys when you come through California next. But yeah, dude, just closing out this interview, I just want to give you a real genuine thank you for writing such relatable lyrics for struggling Christians. I think this new album in particular has been a massive encouragement for me, and I know so many others too. So yeah, just once again, just want to thank you for doing this, and thank you for giving me your time today, man. I think this was a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you, man. I'm glad we finally got to do this. And yeah, I appreciate your encouragement. It helps and it makes a difference, man.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to welcome any new listeners and let you know that there's lots more metalcore band interviews coming soon, as well as my regularly scheduled comedy episodes. Be sure to leave a rating/review. 5 stars is a power play. Also, follow the show and stay up to date with me on social medias at Spencer Whiteout. As always, stay tuned, stay hyped. That's a wrap.
And that's it.